He had a standing invitation. Before they left for Saudi Arabia, the owner of the Pfeffermühle restaurant, Mr. Fritz, invited them to dinner after they returned. Having just got back, they took him up on it. Mr. Petzarko said it's just one way for him to show that the job done in the Persian Gulf was appreciated.
I was born in Yugoslavia. I am a Croatian. It came to me how important it is that we have people like that, people you can depend on, who can be deployed to a foreign country.
The soldiers, for their part, felt that the majority of Germans supported the role they played in Operation Desert Shield Storm.
Let the soldiers know that they are well invited to come to visit with the Germans and have a good time along with the Germans.
And did they like the cuisine?
Oh, the food is very good.
In Würzburg, specialist Rob Summers, AFN News.
For many soldiers returning from the Gulf, the stress of deployment can be overwhelming. And for single soldiers, a strong support system can supplement the lack of a family here in Europe. 5th Corps' Lee Ferguson found out how fellow soldiers and the chain of command can help with the transition from desert.
In the midst of a crowd welcoming returning soldiers, surrounded by families hugging and kissing, one may see a few lost faces. These are the single or unaccompanied soldiers, those whose families are not here in Europe.
I felt kind of bad because I didn't have a family there to hold me and hug me and tell me welcome back. It was bad.
When I got off the bus at that very important time, I was like, I wish my parents were here. If I was married, my wife would be here. I wish I had someone to hug me and tell me, hey, I'm glad to see you home all in one piece. I was lucky because I had friends of mine that patted me in the back and says, don't worry about it, you'll get to see your family soon.
Friends may provide the biggest support system for the single or unaccompanied soldier, providing a friendly ear and a shoulder to lean on in times of stress. And too, many family support groups have adopted these single soldiers who are also an important part of the military family.
I think there's plenty of support, and a lot of people are working real hard to just take care of soldiers in general, married or single. I think people are doing a good job.
If the promise is too big and you see that you need some help, well, you usually go to your first sergeant, let them know. That way they can look for someone else who knows what they're doing and can solve your problems.
First sergeants, chaplains, psychologists, and others often can help with problems just by listening and allowing the soldier to process his or her feelings.
Processing is taking the event and the feelings and putting those together and telling people about them and just letting those people validate that those feelings really do happen.
This is Lee Ferguson, 5th Corps Public Affairs with TV5 for AFN News.
Involved in the Persian Gulf War.
Long before the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, Air Force pilots flew endless training missions, preparing for what they hoped would never happen. But when Saddam Hussein's military invaded Kuwait, the pilots responded. Along with other coalition forces, they gained air superiority almost from the outset and were never seriously challenged.
We train against a threat that's much greater than the one that we faced. Of course, there were some things that surprised us. Small things, I would say. I don't see any real large changes to our training, but definitely very well prepared out there.
The main priority is discipline in the air and flight discipline and professionalism. And if you do what you're taught and the way you're trained, things usually work out pretty well.
The 53rd TAC Fighter Squadron from Bitburg Air Base, Germany, had 24 F-15Cs at this base during the war. 4 of the squadron's pilots share the credit for 8 MiG kills. Much of their success resulted from confidence in their training.
I don't think there's any question that the American fighter training is probably the best combat training in the world. There's a lot of talk about Israeli pilots and the training that they go through, but I don't think you'll find better fighter pilots.
For many pilots, the most anxious moments came during their first mission over enemy territory.
Definitely. The anxiety level was very high on the first mission. I think if you talk to most of the guys, they'll say that. Guys that claim not to have been scared are probably trying to convince themselves that they weren't scared. However, I think that's where the training comes in. Our training is designed to make most of these maneuvers second nature.
Now, with a successful campaign behind them, it's back to more training, with hard-earned knowledge of what war is really like. Reporting from Central Saudi Arabia, I'm Sergeant Daniela Marcus.
Langen missile storage area near Schwäbisch Gmünd. The move caps a 3-year withdrawal of Pershing and other U.S. medium-range nuclear missiles from Europe under the 1987 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, or INF. This Friday's deactivation ends 27 years of Pershing missile operations in Germany. A 3-day getaway in the Bavarian Alps at Berchtesgaden is Usurer's way of saying thank you. U.S. Army Europe offers its soldiers, families, and DA civilians who contributed to the war effort a reward program. Here's AFN Munich specialist Steve Morgan.
The U.S. Army Europe's homecoming celebration had its official grand opening in grand German style with a fest. German and American officials turned out to welcome the troops, including the Berchtesgaden mayor.
We are very glad that Berchtesgaden is in the future a holiday center and a recreation area for the U.S. Army, for the soldiers from the Desert Storm.
It was music, food, and fun for soldiers and families while celebrating the beginning of the reward program, which offers military units free transportation to Berchtesgaden, free lodging at one of the U.S. hotels, and free breakfast and dinner.
Our Commander-in-Chief, General Saint, established this program of rewards for the UCR soldiers and their families. Silent heroes and keepers of the peace for the great work before, during, and after Desert Storm.
Although the soldiers didn't make it to the States for the ticker tape parades, they found their own way to celebrate the success of Operation Desert Storm with the Usurer Celebration Program.
The greeting we received here was exceptional, so it makes me feel good that the United States can do something for the soldiers that serve for the country.
In Berchtesgaden, Specialist Steve Morgan, AFN News.
Now, among those soldiers eligible to participate in that Berchtesgaden reward program is the 7th Corps Artillery. Airman Jeremy Brown reports from their Welcome Home celebration in Augsburg.
Family and friends cheered as buses carrying 7th Corps soldiers returning the Corps colors pulled into the parking lot of Gym Number 2. 1,200 of the 1,300 soldiers from Augsburg have returned from the Middle East. Brigadier General Creighton W. Abrams, Jr., the Augsburg Community Commander, also returned. After a heartfelt reunion with their families and friends, a reception was held indoors where General Abrams said a few words.
But I got to tell you, gang, it's what you did back here that counted the most out there. And I can't thank you all enough for the support that you all gave to each other and gave to the soldiers in the field. When I think about the days ahead and enjoying the time back here in Augsburg, I would like to quote that great philosopher, Jackie Gleason, who used to say, "How sweet it is." Thank you.
A plaque bearing the name of every Augsburg soldier deployed to the Middle East was dedicated by the soldiers who stayed in Augsburg. From Augsburg, Airman Jeremy Brown, AFN News.
On the subject of homecomings, most of these celebrations don't just happen. Case in point, the Frankfurt military community. The MILCOM staff and a host of volunteers turn out to make sure their troops get the welcome they deserve. Kathy Ferris reports.
The routine is meet a plane, clean up, and catch a few winks. But the group of Frankfurt staff workers and volunteers is not complaining about the long hours and short naps, as the job does have its bonuses.
First of all, we have the best part. We give the hugs to the single soldiers who we try and take care of. We let them know that there's somebody here in the community that does love them, because mom and dad or girlfriends and sometimes wives are back in the States. So we start with the hugs and end up by cleaning up tables and just anything else in between that we can do.
During the weeks they've been putting these shindigs together, the group has been greatly rewarded. Connie Hamilton, who helped at Rhein-Main's tent city, feels especially happy.
When I saw all the soldiers leaving for Saudi, coming through Rhein-Main tent city, it was a sad thing to see them go. And now I'm here to see them come back again. And it's a real good feeling to see that they've made it through and they're back and rejoining their families again.
I remember seeing the captain who was in charge of the unit standing in the corner watching looking at the guns that were the M16s that were stacked, and just tears rolling down his face. It was quite moving. Yeah, that's why we do it.
But at least one individual has even more personal reasons for being there.
One of my biggest reasons is I remember what it was like to come back from Vietnam, and I don't want these guys to have the same memory.
Thanks to Ron and his friends, there's no chance of that happening. Reporting from Frankfurt, this is Kathy Ferris, TV5 with 5th Corps Public Affairs for AFN News.
100 soldiers and family members, recognizing them for their part in 7th Corps' success in Operation Desert Storm. He's also expected to present Distinguished Service Awards to several soldiers. In other news, NATO defense ministers finalized a plan to drastically change the alliance's military strategy. U.S. Defense Secretary Dick Cheney and his NATO colleagues endorsed a new force structure centered on a rapid reaction corps under British command. Secretary Cheney says the size of the force will be smaller, but U.S. troops will remain committed to the security of Europe.
We expect to have a drawdown this calendar year of about 25,000 total from Europe. Over the next 5 years, that'll go down, as I say, to roughly half of the current deployment. Instead of the 320,000 Americans that we have in Europe today as part of the NATO operation, we'll have approximately half that number 5 or 6 years from now. The exact timing of the announcements will depend on a lot of details yet to be worked out. We want to be as careful as we can to treat people properly as we go through this process. Hopefully we will be able to make most of the reductions through the normal attrition process as people complete their tours and want to depart or retire. Hopefully we'll be able to avoid the kinds of massive reductions in force that sometimes have happened in the past. But we'll do our best to manage it in a way that's fair and responsible, that shows that we do in fact care for the people who serve in the United States military.
The restructuring plan is expected to be formally adopted at a NATO summit this fall. The largest military victory parade since World War II is planned for the nation's capital, June 8th, and some 550 Desert Storm troops from USAREUR will be among the marchers. They'll join thousands of other service members in the Washington, D.C. victory celebration, and then go on to participate in an Operation Welcome Home parade in New York City, June 10th. The marchers from USAREUR were selected from all the U.S. Army units that served in Southwest Asia. The Department of Defense and the U.S. Postal Service will introduce a plan in mid-July they say will significantly reduce the time it takes for us to receive a letter here in Europe. AFN's Ann Mulligan has more.
Postal officials hope to solve the slow mail problem between Europe and the States by automating the current process of hand-sorting letters. In order to do this, we'll have to change our address formats. APOs don't make sense to computers because there are no street addresses or city names. So here's what we'll have to do. Following our name on the first line, our unit name on the second line, the third line will have the word unit and a number, and the word box and a number. The last line will read APO. Then, instead of New York, a 2-letter code for the part of the world. Ours is AE for Europe. Finally, the 5-digit zip code. Mail with the new addresses won't be accepted until July 15th. Mail addressed the old way will be delivered for about a year. Ann Mulligan, AFN News.
In other postal news, APO mail destined for Operation Provide Comfort no longer has weight restrictions. Now, previously, personal mail headed to addresses created for the relief operation had been limited to 11-ounce letters. Inadequate transportation routes made the restrictions necessary. But now that transportation is more readily available to Turkey and Iraq, postal officials have lifted the weight limit to allow parcels and other class of mail. There was no trading yesterday due to the German holiday, so no change in your exchange rates. Here's a look. That's our report. Have a great day.